Tracy Abramson. Welcome to the Bookaholic Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, so glad you're here. And this is all very exciting because I just can't wait to hear about victim number 8. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. Now, you've written more than 45 best-selling novels, and that is a feat in and of itself. But victim 8, number 8, has already been praised as a taunt, electrifying thriller. And I think that was by Brad Thor.
Correct, yes.
Wow, that's incredible. So, what sparked the idea for this particular story?
It started out the premise of the characters started in the previous book, which is Hometown Vendetta,
Okay.
but a lot of the book for story for this one came from I did a little stopover tour in Istanbul on my way home from Singapore, of all places, and I just fell in love with the city, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this would be such a fun place to have a backdrop." And I my former background is I used to work for the CIA, and so I've used some of my knowledge of that part of the world and, "Okay, what can I do for a conflict?" And that's where the seed was born.
Absolutely. Of course, your background as a former CIA officer gives you a unique perspective. And I'm sure you're full. No wonder you've written 45 best-selling books to date because you've got a great perspective and so much to pull from your
Yeah.
career to write about. So, how much of your outside of what you just told us about the city, how much of your real life experience finds its way into Luke Steele's missions and authenticity of your thrillers?
I think a lot comes in mostly I found early on in my career that every time I tried to write something that was from real life, my editors always said, "It's not realistic." And so real life truly is stranger than fiction, and so it's mostly trying to bring real life down into what could be plausible, but just like the character Luke Steele, he's a military aide for the president, so he works in the White House, and the idea of that career came from a friend of mine who has worked with for the Marine Corps, and he ended up getting that assignment, and so he was up there for 2 years at the end of Obama's term and the beginning of Trump's first term, and just he was great guy. He brought me and my husband in for a West Wing tour at one
Oh,
point, and then I was able to go up with his wife one time to have lunch in the Navy mess or Whitehall mess, depending on if you're Navy or Marine, they call it Navy mess. If not, it's probably White
mhm,
House mess. But just
mhm.
little things like that of the little nuances of that's right down the hall from like to get to the Navy mess, you're passing the situation room.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so things like that, you don't it gives you perspective in a different way. And
Yes.
if you and it's not that I'd never been to the White House
Right.
prior, I've certainly been there several times, but going in there through his eyes and, like, seeing his office, the White House, when you see it on television, it's all these beautiful halls and great artwork, and you go into the military aide's office, and it looks like this dive of an office. It's just a bunch of cubicles and guys just trying to make space work. And it's seeing some of those back corridors and things like that, and I have a lot of friends who either are or have been in the Secret Service, and so I really think of like I said, that I remember, in fact, another person who had done an endorsement on this book was Alex
Mhm.
Finley, and he
Yes.
and I had done a master class with him a couple of years ago,
Oh,
and I loved his comment, and I never thought of my writing this way. He said, "Tracy, you write with authenticity." And I was like, "Okay, what is" and everyone's, "Yes, that's what it is." And it's just people believe what I'm writing. And I was like, "Okay,
yes.
so it's that ability to create a world where everyone can suspend that
Yes.
reality and
Yeah.
say, 'Yeah, this could happen.'" So
Yes, absolutely. And that is a master class in and of itself. That's an expertise thing to do to be able to, whether it's a book or a movie,
oh,
to
yeah.
suspend our beliefs, what's really real, and you not say, be cynical and say, oh, that could never happen. You sometimes
Right.
say that, but still, then you're still engrossed in the story and you finish the book and you finish the movie.
And I
Either
think
way.
part of that too is also understanding the different cultures we're working out of, because everybody to have a really solid novel or story, everyone's not gonna look like the author. And in this case, having been through Istanbul, It was very different than what I expected because it's a very heavy Muslim country, but
Right.
Istanbul is very cosmopolitan. That's what I'm
Yes.
trying to say.
Yeah.
It's very accepting of people of all cultures, and while they're expecting everyone to respect theirs, and absolutely you need to do that, but they're very willing to help anybody. Westerners are very welcome and things like that. So I think that was really enlightening to me to see the different gamut of people. I talked to a couple of people who are Christian living in that area, and so that was another thing that was fun to weave into this book is
Right.
what is it like to be Christian in a largely Muslim area? And I have to
Absolutely.
imagine that people who are Muslim in the United States have a similar like, it's the reverse for them. So, I
Right.
think that, again, it's taking the time to understand and not write beyond what you know. I love that my publishers always have sensitivity readers, and I know when this one came back, they're
Absolutely.
like, "Good job." I was like, "Okay, I like when I get that comment."
Yes,
So
absolutely, absolutely. I watch an influencer on YouTube, and she was showing her travels to Istanbul, and I was
mhm.
thinking, "Istanbul? Why is she going there?" And just as you described, the shots that she showed, it was definitely I was shocked by watching that video. It's a cosmopolitan place. They had all kinds of chic restaurants she was going
Yeah,
to, coffee shops. I was surprised. So, yeah,
yeah,
indeed, I was very shocked by that. I thought it was war torn, but obviously it's
yep,
not. It's very beautiful, as a matter of fact.
it
Now,
is.
victim number 8 opens with the murder of an American journalist in Istanbul and spirals into a nuclear threat. So, what kind of research did you do to keep the global reality while keeping people on the edge of their seats?
So one of the things that I had to look into is serial killers are not terribly common in a lot of other cultures, and Turkey is one of them. It wasn't common. And that was one of the things I did. I went through and I researched the couple that I could find that were documented, and it was like, okay, what was the kind of the behavioral analysis of these people so that I could get into the head of what a serial killer from that culture might have as a motivation. And so that was one of the biggest things that I probably had to do for research was just trying to get into that. It's hard to get into the head of a bad guy.
Yeah,
And especially if the bad guy is a lot of times it's a mental illness issue. Oh, that's sometimes where it comes from.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's the first time that that's been bridged here on the show, and that's tough. That's
Yeah.
very tough. I can't even imagine. How do you handle something like that in your writing?
I think a lot of it is recognizing that everybody has value. Inherently, we all have value. And
Right.
so trying to understand that people who do bad things are probably they've been broken somewhere. We just don't know if they were born that way and that was just their life challenge, or if there was some event that prompted or a series of events that caused challenges and such. But I think taking that worldview of we all have value, that doesn't mean I'm gonna let someone who might cause me harm into my space. And
Right.
we need to be smart on how we're doing that. But just respecting humanity in general and showing grace. There's a lot of power in forgiveness and
Yeah.
saying, let's look at looking at the good in people and hoping that we can overcome the bad. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Luke Steele and Amberlyn Reiner are both strong and complex characters. How do you balance high stakes action with the emotional depth of your protagonists?
I think it just happens. Like, for me, writing a book is like watching a movie, and I just don't know what the next scene is yet, and so it drives me nuts that I have to figure out, like, "Oh, wait, what's gonna happen next?" When we're watching a movie, we wanna see both what's happening, but also what these characters care about,
Right.
and I think that's the biggest thing is you get to a certain point where everyone needs a little bit of a break from the action, and that's usually those lulls are where we can really dive into how are they hurting? What do
Yes.
they want? What are their dreams? What are their hopes for? What are they afraid to hope for? And so the more I feel like I can get into those aspects of the character, the more I feel like they become real and more dynamic.
Is Amberlyn a recurring character in this
Yes,
series? Oh,
she
she is. Okay.
is. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, Brad Thor, back to Brad, called your work smart, emotionally rich, and packed with international intrigue. How does it feel to receive that kind of praise from one of the genre's biggest names?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And I will tell you, So the story behind me meeting Brad was even more, like, surreal, is I was at BoucherCon last year, and I was walking through the hall. I was leaving my hotel room and was gonna go meet a few friends at, like, after dinner. It was like that before the awards, but
Yeah,
after I'd eaten.
right,
And I walked by a couple of people, and when I have this mental, and it's probably partially training and partially just instinct, is
right,
you look at people and you're like, "Friend, unknown," kind of thing.
right,
And
right,
if it's somebody that you know, it's okay. I've already imprinted in this, I'm gonna greet them or whatever. And there were 2 people coming at me, and it was like, they're unknown, like, they were not people that I had personally interacted with. And I come from an entertainment background, so it doesn't matter if somebody's famous or not, I still categorize that way. So I had done that quick glance of, "Yep, they are not friends," and at least at that point, and I hear my name, and I was like, "Tracy?" I was like, turn around, and "Yeah." He's Tracy Abramson, right? I was like, "Yes." He goes, "Hi, I'm Brad Thor." And I was like, "Wait a minute." I said, "How am I even on your radar?" And I'm sure it's from my background as CIA. He had checked the bios of who was coming to the conference, and I was one of the people that was fortunate enough to catch his attention. Having the last name Abramson may have been largely to my benefit. But and then we had kind of a funny incident later that night. The funny thing was, I think one of the things that probably helped solidify or show that a friendship could happen was he and his, I think it was his publicist, were heading to try to find something to eat. And they had it where it was like an open invitation of, "Hey, you can join us." And so I
right.
took a step toward to start. And I was like, "You know what, guys? You're probably gonna have a better chance of getting something if it's just the 2 of you. I ate a late lunch, so I'm just gonna let you guys go, and I'll catch you later." And so I stepped back, and it was just logical of, I had these other friends that were gonna be waiting on me
Right,
and were expecting me to show up, and it would be wonderful to get to know these gentlemen better. They had an agenda, they needed to get something to eat before this awards thing, and I was like, "They'll have a
right,
better shot without me."
right.
But I think just the fact that I wasn't "Oh my gosh, you're Brad Thor, and if I could cling on to you and hang on to your coattails and maybe it'll benefit me in some way," I think showed that a friendship could happen. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is I was not gonna ask him for an endorsement in any way, shape, or form, and my publisher was such a huge fan. He's, "Please, will you ask him?" And so I texted Brad and I was like, "Okay, please know that no is an acceptable answer. Like, it is, if this does not fit in your schedule, please say no. It is fine." And then he was very gracious and agreed to do it. And honestly, he's an example of the thriller community in general. There are some really phenomenal people who are just so kind and giving in their time.
Yes. Oh, wow. My mind is just spinning. First of all, I think I might have fainted had he called my name and knew who I was. That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I commend you for stepping back on that. Not many people would have stepped back on
And
that deal.
Yeah, and I didn't
Invitation.
even think about it until later, but it was because I had stepped back and hadn't had the conversation much time with them. Later that night, I ran into him, and I walked up to him, I said, "Okay, I just have to tell you how surreal this moment was, like, that was crazy." I'm like, "Where in the
Yes.
world did I even hit on your radar?" And so that's
Yeah.
what started the conversation, and then we ended up spending a couple of hours hanging out with a group of other people and such, and anyway, but yeah, he's a great guy.
Wow, that's incredible. I love that. I love that story. So now, as we said before, you've won multiple awards, including the Silver Falchion Judges Top Pick Thriller. How do you feel your writing has evolved over the course of your career? And what keeps you motivated to push the boundaries, excuse me, in your genre?
So I think my mentality has been the same from day one, is that I never wanted to disappoint a reader.
Yeah.
Um, and go to conferences, and not just, I'm teaching or presenting at them, but I go to a lot of classes as well, or even just hanging out with other authors. You're always learning. You're
Yeah.
always trying to learn more about the craft, or even sometimes what the trends are and things like that. But I want every book in the series to be better than the last one. You want everyone to be
Yes.
like, "Oh my gosh, I have to get the next one because the last one was so good that let me see what's happening next." And so I think that's probably the biggest thing with where a lot of the awards will come in is I don't look that I'm competing against other people. I'm competing against myself and my best work of yesterday. You want today's work to be better than anything you've done before, or at least
Right.
you make the attempt where hopefully people won't be disappointed in what comes next. Then as far as pushing the boundaries, I think I have a lot of friends that tend to write in my space, and many of them are men. Many of
Yeah,
them, men and women typically are. I have a great friend group of former intel, former law enforcement, former military, and such. And what I'm a little unique in is that I typically, where a lot of my friends write, like for the Tom Clancy estate and some of those high
yeah,
stakes military thrillers, I
yes,
tend to write books that are more for people who they're not going to care about what specific weapon or caliber that weapon is firing. Not that I
right,
don't know the answers necessarily, but it's for a more probably a broader audience that it's a little easier to read, and it also can read to a younger audience.
right,
But one of the other big things that I am very focused on, and it just happens naturally, is I don't have any foul language in my books. I don't have any intimacy that's on a page. I don't have the violence is not graphic. And so if somebody is on a road trip with their teenagers and grandma in the car, they can listen to my book, and the blush factor is low enough that the 12-year-old can still be listening, and I've got 10-year-old super fans, and I love
Oh,
that. I
wow.
love that I have
Yeah,
kids who are reading my stuff and that they can, and that was
right,
honestly what got me started writing is I saw a huge gap there, that there were kids who wanted to be reading in the adult market, but the content was eliminating so many books from their
yes,
arsenal of what they could possibly read.
right,
And it's
right,
I'm not judging people who are putting that other content in. It's just for me,
right.
that has been my brand and it's been very friendly to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. You touched on something. You mentioned that you have some friends that write for the Tom Clancy estate. And
Mhm,
then on the other side, we see, say, James Patterson has
mhm.
different authors that he co-writes with. Is that something that you would consider writing for the Tom Clancy estate or maybe partnering with, I don't know how all these things happen, with James Patterson or something like that?
I've known people to do both. I've known some to do Jim Patterson's as well, and I certainly would never close a door on anything like that. I think every opportunity is an opportunity to learn more, and
Right.
those Clancy, Patterson, oh, they're Vince Flynn, all of those, they're masters. They've
Yeah.
done so much for the genre. My thing is I couldn't do it unless I can do it my version. Like, I have to do a clean version. So if that's not friendly to them, then I couldn't do it
Yes.
because I'm not gonna change who I am in order to conform to something else. And if that's not a good fit, then that's fine. So
Absolutely. I love the way you stand your ground. So now for aspiring thriller writers, especially those who admire your ability to weave intrigue with emotional authenticity, what advice would you give them about crafting truly compelling suspense?
I think remembering that every story should be character driven, I think is one of the biggest pieces of advice I could give to specifically thriller writers. Because a lot of times in the thriller genre, we get so hung up on the research of, again, the caliber, the weapons, the
Yes.
background of the intelligence, all of that sort of thing that we forget to put the humanity in. And that's actually one of the things that I loved. I got some really great feedback and I didn't expect it from victim number 8 is Luke Steele in this book is dealing with some emotional trauma and trying to overcome it.
Right.
And a lot of early readers have loved that because they're like, a lot of people don't go there, but I don't go there as let me put a cloud over everything. It's more of a, hey, this is life. And you can find joy even when you're going through hard things.
Absolutely.
So I think that's one of the things is don't be afraid to push boundaries and do something that's your own. I think following trends is never a good idea because by the time your book is ready to go, the trend's gone. So I think we should all
Yes,
be
right.
trendsetters. So
The same with creating videos.
yeah, it's so
Yes, by
true.
the time I get around to it, the trend is gone. Oh,
Yes,
goodness. Yes, absolutely.
it's
Well,
anything in the
Tracy,
creative world.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And so, of course, we can find your victim number 8 anywhere, correct?
Yes,
Yes, so online, on Amazon, in bookstores. Try
yep,
your independent bookstores first.
absolutely. Yeah, and I'll
Abs
actually have quite a few signings coming up. So we're doing a little bit, I'll be a little of everywhere. So that'll be fun. And all of those signings will be on my website.
Absolutely, sounds great. And what's your website really quickly?
It's tracyabramson.com. And you can see on the screen, TraciAbramson.
Absolutely. Tracy, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Thanks.